There's a lot of question marks with this project. Will I have enough fabric? Is it gonna be done in time? Will I have horrible regrets about taking apart a project that I did work really hard on? We'll see. Hello, welcome or welcome back. I recently made a video talking about a dress that I made to wear to my friend's wedding in Bulgaria. And if you watched that video, you might recall that towards the end of it, I said that I wasn't super happy with how the dress turned out. I wore it, it was fine, but I made it on kind of a time crunch and just felt like the vision that I had for it didn't really come to fruition. And since then, this dress has been sitting in my closet for the past couple months, and I just feel sad about it. I love the fabric so much. It's this beautiful cotton pattern. I just feel like it kind of went to waste with this dress, and I want to do something about it. Okay, after putting it on again, I do feel the need to say that I don't hate this dress. I think that I constructed it very well. I just also don't love the dress. I feel like it doesn't do a ton for me. I don't love where it cuts off at the ankle. It feels a little bit too weird and constricting on the neckline. So there's just like lots of little things about it that I don't love. I just wanted to throw that in here in case anyone is like, that dress looks fine on you. Why are you tearing it apart? I don't hate the dress, but I also don't love it. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. Now, I kind of have a policy not to touch things that I've made in terms of like changing them for at least a year, because I've had several pieces in my closet that I've made and maybe didn't fall in love with right away, but then I've really come around to them. However, I just want to try to make something new with this fabric and try to do it justice. So as luck would have it, this is a big year of weddings for me and my partner, and we have another wedding coming up for one of his friends, and I thought what better opportunity than to try making another wedding guest dress, take two, out of the same fabric. But I've just downloaded the closet core pattern for the Pauline dress, which looks gorgeous, and we're gonna see if I can make something cool that I will actually want to wear again with this beautiful fabric. Okay, I've just cut out all my pattern pieces, which always takes so much longer than I think it's going to. Closet core patterns in particular, I've made their Carolyn pajamas, I think it is, and loved that pattern, but they do, the one good slash bad thing about closet core patterns is they give like a lot of variations to every pattern, which I think is great in terms of versatility and getting to really make exactly what you want and getting a lot of use out of a pattern. But it does mean that they give you so many pattern pieces. So like this dress has an optional lining, it has two different styles of sleeves, it has an extra optional ruffle at the bottom, which I am hoping to do. So anyway, a lot of pattern pieces, but I've got them cut out, and so I think it's now time to say goodbye to the dress. I did, just as I mentioned, when I tried it on again, I had one last fleeting moment of like, oh my gosh, should I cut this dress up? Do I want to do this? And I think I do, because while I love the spirit of like holding on to all the patterns I make for, I don't know, my own personal posterity and memories, I don't want to hold on to pieces that I'm not like really in love with. And I think I'm kind of at the point in my sewing journey where I want to be making pieces that I really love and that I really wear, not pieces that just sit in my closet waiting to be worn or having been worn once. So I think we're gonna do it, and hopefully we'll make something better out of it. Better meaning something that I'm more excited about wearing. I'm also hoping that I have enough fabric to do this. There is a distinct possibility that I'm gonna have to try to go and source a little bit more of this fabric, but we'll see. Especially because, as I mentioned, there are a lot of different options for this dress, and I think I wanna do almost the most. I don't need a lining for this fabric, but I do want the big puff sleeve, and I would like to have the ruffle on the bottom, and it's gonna require a lot of fabric. So we'll see how much I'm able to source from this. I do think that the local fabric store probably still has some of this in stock, hopefully. We'll get creative if we need to, but for now, it's time to take it apart. Also, if anyone is curious, the soundtrack of the day is the Sabrina Carpenter, the new Sabrina Carpenter album, Man's Best Friend. I will say on first listen, it didn't capture me, but it has grown on me very quickly and I'm really loving it. So that's what I'll be listening to. Okay, this is gonna take a long time, so I'll see you at the end. Okay, one deconstructed dress done. Let me show you where we're at. So we've got the skirt, which is a front piece and a back piece, and these are literally just rectangles, so actually really good fabric to work from. We've got the pockets, which I'm planning to just reuse in the new pattern. And then from the bodice, we have these front bodice pieces, which were cut on the fold. So I have 2 of these front bodice pieces and then 4 of these back bodice pieces. I also did discover that I have a tiny bit of extra fabric. And then I also went through my stash and just found a couple of like potential complementary fabrics. I'm just thinking that there are a couple of facings on this new pattern, and if I could make those with a kind of complementary fabric, since they'll be on the inside of the garment anyway, that could save me a little bit of fabric. Basically, I have just gone back and forth the whole time I was seam ripping, thinking about whether I actually have enough fabric to make this new dress, and I really don't know. I think because I want to do the sleeves and the extra skirt ruffle, it's gonna be really tight. And there are a couple of pieces that are bigger and meant to be cut on the fold that I worry I'm gonna have to patchwork together. So we'll see. My plan tentatively is to start with the bodice pieces and literally just see if I can cut out the new bodice pieces from the old bodice pieces. We'll see. We'll see, and we'll try to problem solve as we go. Good morning. So this morning I finally cut out some pattern pieces. Yesterday I really just had to let it kind of marinate in my head how I wanted to Tetris all of these pieces. And this morning I cut out all of the bodice pieces. I also added interfacing to some of the facing pieces. And basically this is where I've landed in terms of fabric usage and reusage. I guess how I'm able to use the old fabric pieces with the new dress. Basically, I was able to fit all of the bodice pieces, save for the front bodice piece, on the old bodice pieces. Let me show you the front bodice piece. So the front bodice piece for this new dress is this big guy, and it's meant to be cut on the fold. So this is actually quite a big piece of fabric, and there was just no way for me to fit that onto any of my existing bodice pieces unless I wanted to patchwork it together. And I just felt like having a seam like right in the middle, which would have been the logical place to put the seam, wouldn't look very good, especially with the pattern. So I cut that front piece from one of the old skirt pieces, and with my kind of fabric inventory where we're at, and how things have already been cut. I think that I could probably do the tiered dress if I'm willing to do a little bit of patchworking together that longer bottom tier, but I don't think I will be able to do the sleeves unless I get more fabric. Because look at this sleeve piece. This is an enormous puff sleeve, which I love the idea of, but practically speaking, just in terms of trying to like put it onto pieces that have already been cut out for other things, it's a huge piece. So the current plan is to put together the bodice without the sleeves, because there is an option to do the bodice sleeveless, and just see how I like it. And then if I feel like I really want the sleeve on it, we can go get more fabric. I did double check, and my local fabric shop where I got this fabric originally does have more of it. So that's what I'll be using as kind of my saving grace. I just felt like it was not worth completely stressing over. Hopefully that all made sense in terms of old dress, new dress, pieces for both. Now I think it's time to get into sewing. I'm hoping to have a big sewing day today, so we're just gonna start on the bodice and see how far we get. Okay, I just spent about 5 minutes looking for my air and water erasable marker, because if there's one thing I remember about the last closet core pattern I did, it's that there are lots of markings to transfer, which are very helpful if you use them. I am not that good at following markings all the time, probably much to a lot of your dismay, but there are darts and pleats on this bodice front that we're gonna have to do first. So marker is necessary. As a side note, I remember when I started sewing, I found it really confusing how I was meant to like transfer markings from paper onto the fabric, especially markings like these guys where it's like in the middle of the fabric. There are probably a lot of ways to do this, but the way that I found works best is just punching a hole where you need it on the paper and then using an air or water erasable marker to transfer that hole onto the fabric. Not actually making a hole, but making a mark where the hole is. I used to try to like pin where it comes through on the fabric, which is, it's workable if you don't have one of these, but this is a very inexpensive sewing tool that I didn't buy for a long time, and now I use it on every single project. So just putting it out there, if there's anyone who is perhaps newer to sewing, I recommend getting a fabric marker. midday update. I kind of just got stuck into the sewing and didn't really update you guys, but I started by getting the pleats and the darts into the bodice. So this bodice has 2 darts at the front and then these little pleats at the bottom. These little pleats here, which just add a little bit of shape and texture to the bodice, which I think is interesting. And then I put in the front facing, which I find facings very fiddly. It's the start of my Dr. Seuss book. I think I've probably only ever done facings once before, so it's probably just a question of I don't have a lot of experience and could use the practice. But I remember doing facings on the Claire dress that I made, which is the gray gingham dress that you might see me wear sometimes. I've actually been getting a lot of questions about that dress lately. The gray dress that I wear is the Claire dress pattern by Hubbading. And I did make a video about it, but it was my very first video. So if you go watch it, please be kind because I've learned a lot since then. But anyway, that was the only other time that I've done facings so far. Essentially facings, if you don't know what they are a way to finish things like a neckline, places where it might be hard to finish the fabric nicely. You could do a bias tape binding or a facing. So a facing is essentially just a mirrored image of a small part of the piece. So it's not like full lining, but it just seals in the edge of the fabric. This one, I think maybe also because it was a square neckline, I just found it to be kind of fiddly to do, but I did my best, which is all we can ever ask of ourselves. And now I think I'm gonna take a break, but then next I'll be getting into the shoulder panels. So getting into the back of the dress. I think that's all I got. You can probably tell I'm tired and I need a little break from the sewing. So I'm gonna take one. Front of the bodice, done, check. Hello, I haven't filmed in a couple days, but I did work a tiny bit on this dress off camera yesterday, and I realized that I'm really quite close to being done with the bodice. I think the back construction is much simpler than the front. So that's what I would like to get done today. Basically, off camera, I did one of the back shoulder constructions and it's pretty cool. It's different than anything I've made before. So I wanted to be sure to do the other one on camera to kind of show you a little bit of the technique. So the back has 2 of these shoulder panels that are made up of these 2 pieces, one of which has been interfaced. And then there's a neck tie to bring the 2 halves together. Now I'm gonna pin and stitch these pieces partially together. So I'm basically gonna stitch all the way along here across the tie and then up to just shy of the top here. And then same thing along here, sewing just shy of this top piece because we're gonna want part of this flap to be open. You'll see. So now I can grade the seam allowance, turn it right sides out, and press. this is where the technique is kind of cool and unique, I think. I haven't seen anything like this before to close up a shoulder seam, but basically what we've created are two pieces, a front piece and a back piece, that are not fully closed at the ends. So we left a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance opening, which means we can open that up and just pin back the interfaced side on both pieces, and then put right sides together of the non-interfaced portion of the seam, and we'll sew that up on the machine. So that's the part that you're gonna see on the top of the shoulder. So that'll be nice and neat and machine sewn. And then on the underside, we'll do a little hand stitch to finish the seam on the underside. So this bit is a little bit finicky, but I'm just making sure that my interfaced pieces on both sides have been pulled away, which that's why we pinned them down. And then I'm just gonna sew at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance across here. So now you can see on the right side, it's all stitched together nicely. Here's the front, and then this will be the back of the shoulder seam. And this side came together a lot nicer for me. I feel like if you are also making this, really make sure that you get to the very ends of each side of this shoulder seam, which seems obvious, but I feel like I stopped kind of just short because it is a little bit of a finicky thing to stitch on the other side, and this side looks much better. And then on the underside, you can see we've still got all of this nonsense going on. I'm gonna grade the seam allowance that I just stitched. So basically now we're gonna do kind of like a little tucking in trick, which I found very confusing after just reading the instructions. After we grade this seam allowance, there'll be a little bit less bulk, but we've got essentially two tubes here, and we just need to close them up. So we're essentially gonna stick all the fabric from the back side, so this little flap that we held open on the back side, into the tube on the front side. So then it closes itself up pretty nicely like that. And then I believe we just have to do a little bit of a fold over sort of situation so that we have a nice clean edge. Can you see? And then this we'll just hand stitch closed. A little bit of a finicky maneuver, and I'm still like not 100% sure that I have it all correct, but this is what I was able to make of the instructions, and I think it's actually really clever because I think it closes it up really nicely from the right side, and then on the wrong side there's just a tiny bit of hand stitching that you have to do. But I really love this trick. Can you see it? Of like having this little tube of fabric open and then being able to tuck away all the little bits into the tube and fold it over. So I think I'm gonna leave that for now, perhaps do that hand stitching a little bit later off camera. And I'm just gonna proceed with the rest of the back bodice, which I think is just sewing a few pieces together, like straight stitch, nothing crazy. And then we'll attach the back of the shoulder seams to the back of the bodice. I just stitched the side back piece and the center back piece together, kind of hard to see, but then I just overlocked the edge, and then I've basted those back pieces onto our shoulder piece. And now I believe I just need to put the facing on. So this is the back facing, and I believe I just need to like sandwich everything together. I feel like this is one of those steps where I have to follow the instructions very closely, or else I'm going to sew something together the wrong way. I'm glad that I double checked because I did have the shoulder piece attached the wrong way. They're kind of confusing because they're like triangles, but I think I've got it right now. So I've got the back piece, the shoulder piece, which is basted on up here, and then it's just sandwiched in with the back facing. Now I'm just gonna stitch all the way along here to secure. Okay, the first shoulder turned out really nice. Here's the back, and this is where it's attached. And then you can see the facing on the inside. So I'm gonna turn out the other side and press it. I'm so happy with how crisp that looks. I love it. This is a really well-written pattern. There's a lot of instructions, a lot of very detailed instructions, which is kind of a good and a bad thing. It does feel a little bit overwhelming, but also when you follow them, it does really work. Like, they know what they're talking about, shockingly enough. I believe we just need to stitch the side seams closed. Then we can do a tiny little try on tonight. Okay, I just finished the understitching and put the side seams together. So I'm gonna do a little try on. Obviously the back will be a zipper, so the back is still open. So I was worried that the square neckline, the straps were too far out, and I think they could stand to be a little bit further in. I think I'd really have a preference for straps being closer into my body rather than like out on my shoulders, but they're fine, they seem fine. And then the back. I'm noticing that there's a little bit of gapping just at the top of the back right now, which I'm hoping might sort itself out when we actually like put the zipper in and everything. Okay, now that's actually it for tonight. I will see you tomorrow. Good morning. I slept very poorly last night, so if I look or seem tired today, it's because I am. Also, I have the window open, so hopefully it's not too much extraneous sound, but it's just like so cool and crispy, and like the first signs of fall are happening, which is just my favorite time of year, so I must have the window open. I have just started this morning on a few bits for the skirt of this dress. Last night I finished the shoulder seams. Did I do something else last night? Maybe not, maybe that was it. But anyway, this morning I just made sure that all of my skirt pieces were cut out. I did end up patchworking a couple pieces of the skirt, but I think it turned out well. I am not mad about how it looks. Then I sewed in the darts on the top of the skirt and sewed up the side seams for both the top skirt piece and the bottom like ruffly piece. I do think that mine is going to be shorter than what was intended for the like longer ruffle skirt. I didn't actually use the bottom pattern piece for the ruffle skirt for two reasons. One, like I said, I'm just trying to use the fabric that I have, and so I basically just had one option for a panel of fabric that could be used for that piece. And two, I was looking at the actual shape of the pattern piece, and it's not a perfect rectangle. There is a bit of shaping, but it's pretty close to just being a big rectangle, and I'm someone who prints out my patterns at home, and I just couldn't bring myself to print something out that's like basically a rectangle. I am a little bit worried about the fit through the hips. I ended up grading the pattern, so it's actually two whole sizes different between the bodice and the skirt. I just hope it works okay, because that's a lot of grading to do. It is one thing that excites me a lot about sewing, because looking at just the shape of this pattern, it is not something that I would ever be able to buy in a store, because my like hip to chest ratio is just not. I would have to buy two different dresses and melt them together. But when you're sewing, you can do whatever you want. So I'm trying it, and I'm a little bit nervous about it fitting okay, but I think before I actually finish any of the seams on the skirt, I'm just going to pin everything together so I can get a rough sense of how it will fit and make sure that it looks okay. And then we just have the zipper left. I think that's like basically it. Then it's just putting the three layers together, the bodice, the top skirt, and the lower skirt, and adding a zipper. So we're actually quite close. I do need to go to the store to get that zipper though, because I don't have one at home. It proved harder to like pin it together and try it on than I thought, so I think it actually looks quite bad right now, but I'm hoping that's just because it's all kind of pinned together and unfinished. So this bottom piece will be gathered in and attached. I feel like it fits fine through the hips, like it's definitely close. It's close, but it's not like too tight, I don't think. It's just quite short at the back. I've just got too much going on back there, I guess. I don't know that there's really anything to be done about that right now because I'm pretty much like out of fabric. I can't recut any of these pieces. In that sense, I guess it doesn't really matter how this try on goes because there's not much I can do about it. Fingers crossed that when I put all the pieces together properly, it will look okay. I'll be super bummed if I make a dress out of this fabric twice and I hate it both times. Let's put the 3 pieces together, I guess. Okay, I can tell I'm at the point in the project when I'm close to the end and just want to be done because I keep doing things and not filming them at all. But I just attached the bodice to the top skirt and I think it's looking okay. And now I think it is time to install the zipper, which I am nervous about. It's supposed to be an invisible zipper and I still don't have an invisible zipper foot. I don't think I've installed a zipper since last December, probably when I did my like Christmas skirt project. Gosh, I love that skirt. I'm excited to wear it again. But the zipper on it was kind of questionable because again, it was meant to be an invisible zipper and I don't have an invisible zipper foot, which I do realize how much of a difference that makes. I was gonna get one for this project and then it just hasn't come in time. So I'm just gonna do my best with this zipper. I actually just stepped out to the sewing store to pick up the zipper and unfortunately I did a really poor job color matching it. So hopefully I can make it as invisible as possible because I fear that the zipper doesn't actually match the fabric very well. But okay, I'm gonna have to read these instructions very carefully because you better believe that I don't remember how to install a zipper properly. Okay, finish the center back seams, yes. If your invisible zipper extends, yes, okay. Create a guide starting below the facing and stopping at the zipper notch. Zippers are just so confusing. I just feel like every single time I've put in a zipper, I've done it wrong. So I'm trying really hard to like read the directions and understand how it's all gonna fit so that I don't do it wrong. But okay, I think I'm gonna need a moment. Okay, zipper I think successfully sewed onto one side. So it's just sewed along here and I was just able to zip it and unzip it, so that's good. It's not gonna be perfectly invisible. Like you can kind of see the middle edge here. But the one piece of advice that I've heard again and again is just to try to get as close as possible to the teeth. So I just went super, super slow and tried to stay as close to the teeth as possible and use the hand crank a lot. I did it off camera because sometimes when I'm doing something that I'm not confident about, I just need to do it off camera. But now I have to attach this to the other side. So I'll try to do that on camera. Okay, so I just zipped the zipper up and then pinned it in place on the other side to make sure it's going to be even on both sides, hopefully. And now I'm gonna unzip it and sew up the other side. Okay, moment of truth. Let's see how we did. Okay, it is decidedly not invisible, but I knew it wasn't going to be perfect without the correct foot. I think it's pretty close, and I think I'm okay with it. I think that's all there is to it. I can maybe like press it in such a way that it conceals a little bit of the zipper. We'll see. Then I think all I need to do is probably some finishing touches on this zipper and then add the bottom layer of the skirt and hem it. Is that it? I think that's it. Okay, I'm gonna try to power through some of that and talk to you in a minute. And just like that, the Pauline dress is done. You might have been able to tell that towards the end I was getting a little bit fatigued with this project, so I did work through a few of the final steps off camera, but ultimately I think a lot of the interest in this pattern is in the bodice, which I hope I captured really well. Closing thoughts. I would say this pattern is excellent, especially if you are maybe a beginner looking to advance your technical skills a little bit. I think that this pattern and a lot of closet core patterns do a really good job of being very thorough in the instructions. There are a lot of technical elements, but they're very approachable. I would say give it a try, even if it feels like it might be a little bit out of your range technically. And I think I would definitely make it again. I've seen some people make the Pauline dress, especially the version with puff sleeves and the above the knee cut, as kind of like a fall dark academia sort of look in like a plaid. And I think that idea is really cool and definitely something I'm considering doing. I also am pleased to say that the dress fits, which should just be the bare minimum, but as I mentioned, I was a little bit nervous about the fit because I had to grade 2 whole sizes between the bodice and the skirt. Like I said before, this is one of the wonderful things about sewing, is that you can really make a garment what you want, and maybe a silhouette that doesn't seem super approachable in store becomes accessible to you. And I would say that that's definitely true for this one. It pushed me out of my comfort zone a little bit in terms of silhouettes that I'm comfortable wearing, but I really loved how it turned out, and I think that it's really flattering. Obviously, the big goal with this dress was to remake something that I didn't love and that I didn't feel like I would wear again. And I think I've definitely done that. I am so pleased that I got to reuse this fabric in a way that will feel more exciting for me, hopefully, to wear again, and that I got to practice a lot of skills that I maybe haven't done in a long time, like zippers, like facings. On the whole, I'm super happy with the dress. So thank you so much for watching. I know this is a longer video, so I really appreciate it if you are still here. And if you are still here, I think you might like some of my other videos. So please feel free to subscribe and check out the other videos on the channel, and I will see you again very soon. Bye.